Hi, everybody. Welcome to Coach's Playbook with Paul LaPolice, your home for elite CFL breakdown analysis. All right, it's that time of year again. I usually break down the stats and information about every team in the league, their offensive stats, defensive stats, create some storylines, look at their free agency and things that happened and stuff I can explain. So we're going to start that process this week. Today, let's start with the Montreal Alouettes. So let's open the playbook on the Montreal Alouettes. Before we start, please subscribe to the page and turn notifications on. It's going to help alert you as we post new stuff, and it helps support the page. All right, Montreal. Last season, a couple of things, 12-5-1, won the East. I thought they were pretty consistent throughout the stretch. They went 5-1 to start the season. Then they went 5-1 the next stretch of 6 games, and then down the stretch they were 2-3-1. One of those losses, that crazy Winnipeg at the end of the game. They were probably going to win the game, but then the wind picked up in Winnipeg's favor at the last game of the year. But outstanding season for Jason Moss and company. In these final, though, the tides were kind of turned. They struggled having TD turnovers in that game against the Toronto Argonauts. Toronto Argonauts got a bunch of takeaways in that East Final last year, but it still finished 30-28. So I thought Montreal actually overcame a lot of those turnovers to keep themselves in the building and in the opportunity to win the football game, but they didn't. Okay, so let's start with a couple of points I'm going to talk about offensively. Right, 5th in points scored. So they're not the top 3 teams in the league. And they're also the bottom half in yardage. But these guys know how to strike. And this is kind of the notes I've made from this, is they are second in the CFL in big plays. And they have the most 30-plus pass plays in the Canadian Football League. That's first in passing of big play passes, 30-plus pass completions. Why is that important? Because when you only have 2 downs and when you have a 110-yard long field, it's important you flip the field with explosive plays. And that's one of the huge measurables I've always tried to do as an offensive coordinator. Like, I want to make sure that when we take a shot downfield, we're going to strike, and we're going to throw touchdowns and non-interceptions and be good at the 20-yard downfield throws. You don't sometimes have to lead the league in passing to be able to execute that area of the field. These guys do it as good as anybody else. The other thing I thought they did very well is completion percentage. First in the CFL last year, 71%. Now, there is a lot of short passing game, and I usually talk about this term, short shot with Montreal, because they're going to take a lot of short plays, get your first downs, lull you to sleep, get an extra first down, bang, here comes that explosive shot play. Now, the other reason why this football team wins is also, number 2, on offense, second fewest giveaways in the Canadian Football League. So they get explosive football plays offensively. They make sure they do a good job of protecting football, can win a lot of games when that happens. Where do they need to improve? A little thing, 7th in red zone offensive TD opportunities, so 7th in the Canadian Football League. You'd like them to be better, but I'm sure that's something they will work on. But it'll be very interesting to see Davis Alexander now in this role, and we'll talk about that after. But defensive stats, good in a lot of categories, but here's where they are great. They are great at keeping people out of the end zone. So first stat, passing TDs. First in the Canadian Football League with a ridiculous. They only gave up 17 passing touchdowns last year. And in a league that throws the football as much as it does, in a league that has quarterbacks who throw 4 or 5 touchdowns in games, that's an amazing stat. 18 regular season games, only 17 touchdowns. A very good season for the guys in the back end. 30-plus completions. We just talked about big plays and how big plays allow you to flip the field and get in scoring opportunity. Gave up the fewest in the Canadian Football League, at first with only 14, and they were the second most pass-efficient defense in the CFL. So those are really good things. And takeaways, 4th in the CFL, so they were able to take the football away, but not one of the best. But the other reason, great in the red zone. So what's the red zone? From the 20-yard line in, they keep teams out of the end zone better than any in the CFL. They held them to 40% scoring, and the closer you get to from the 20 to the goal line, it's easier to score. They keep teams out better than anybody else. Okay, what does that lead to? A couple coaching points and talks. So my coaching point for this team is, I think with Davis Alexander getting the starting role, he's had multiple years in the system. They got almost all their skill guys back. And Jason's talked about this in these off-season conversations. I want to make sure he's got the whole system. He can operate it. He's been in it long enough. They got to trust him, and I'm sure they will, and give him opportunities to stretch the field, put these deep, explosive plays downfield, make opportunities to let that kid play quarterback because he's dynamic. He can use his legs. He's done a lot of good things. I know they got a great defense around him, so he doesn't have to do everything, but he also has to have an understanding, hey, if we protect the football, our defense isn't going to give up touchdowns. So I want him to be explosive, take the shots, but he also understands you got a good defense around him. And I think the defense continue to keep people in the end zone. You're helping a quarterback. He's only got 4 career starts. Okay, so how do we continue to play great defensively? We already talked about how good their stats were. So Davis Alexander, 5-0 the games he played. Okay, 5-0 in the games he played. 4 were starts. 1 he relieved Caleb Evans, and I believe in the second quarter. And that's how you get a starting role in an organization. Now, first of all, he's been in the organization a couple of years, so it's not like you're throwing a true rookie in. That's hard to do when that happens, and most teams fail when that happens. But he's been in the organization a couple of years. Gets his opportunity. He makes plays. He makes throws. He puts the ball in the end zone. And every time he was asked while the starter was hurt, he went downfield and he won games. Who did that sound like? Zach Collaros years ago, and he earned a starting job. So for Davis Alexander, that's a great story for me that, sometimes quarterbacks get their opportunities and they manage a game. You win a game, but it's really the other factors. This kid was a factor in all those wins, I thought. I thought he played tremendously. Looking forward to watching him. Deep ball strikes. This is a team that I always talk about deep ball passing. 20-plus completions. They're 8th in attempts, so they didn't throw it deep a lot, okay, but they're 3rd in yardage, okay, and they're 1st in pass efficiency. Why? 14 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. They do an outstanding job when they do take those shots downfield. They don't have to take a ton of them, but when they do, they locate them, throw touchdowns and not interceptions. That's a great thing teams do. Tyrese Beverett, 137 total plays on defense. The Owls MOP, most outstanding defensive player. Durable, 18 starts last season. Now, why is this guy so important? I'll tell you why. How I know he's so important. He was the first offseason signing last year of the Owls. Before Davis Alexander, they signed Tyrese Beverett. I thought that was interesting looking at the signings. And I think a roster big story for me is McLeod Bethel Thompson. I think that's a great ad by Dana Machocha and Jason Moss. This is a guy who's seen a lot of football, who's at a stage in his career where, I think if he gets opportunities to play, he's going to relish in those opportunities. He's seen a lot of pictures. But more than anything, I think he's a great mentor for a young quarterback in Davis Alexander. I heard so many great stories from the coaches from the Edmonton Elks of how well McLeod Bethel Thompson helped Trey Ford. And basically, there are situations where he would say, hey, listen, Trey's starting. I'm going to talk less in meetings. Doesn't mean I'm not engaged. I want him to be the leader and the voice that's heard. He was very encouraging and helped Trey in a lot of ways. And you've heard Trey talk about how much McLeod meant. So I think that's a great signing. And I also just think that this team re-signed a lot of the players I really liked that got them into first place. It's a couple years in Jason's system, so I expect great things from this Montreal Alouettes football team this year.